Welcome back to another conversation about leaving well and why it is important for your nonprofit organization to prioritize things like succession planning, planning for whether you'll bring in an interim to your work, and how to get your board of directors on the same page when it comes to your organizational succession and sustainability. My name is Naomi Hadaway. I'm the founder and president at Eighth and Home, which is the organization where leaving well exists as one of the biggest priorities that we are striving to get more folks to talk about. Today, we are going to talk about Target. Yes, the department store. So we're going to talk about Target's CEO succession and talk about how planning meets reality. And we're going to talk a little bit about the tricky truth of promoting from within when your strategy is failing. So you've likely heard the news, and if you've been around this channel for any length of time, you know that I love talking about things that are out in the wild, especially borrowing from the corporate world, from the sports world, and dissecting it and drilling it down to lessons that you as a nonprofit leader can take and implement right away in your organization. So you've likely heard the news, but Brian Cornell is stepping down after 11 years as the Target CEO. Target's board, however, is doing a couple of things that are interesting to me. So the big news is he's stepping down, right? And there's a lot of hubbub about the pressure, the backlash, the falling numbers because of their stance on DEI. Target's board promoted COO Michael Fiddelke to take the helm. So on paper, this looks textbook: long tenure, planned transition, internal candidate with deep organizational knowledge. But here's the uncomfortable questions that nobody's asking and that I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about. Number one, I don't believe that Brian Cornell is stepping down due to any pressure, falling numbers, any of those kind of things. I also think that it raises the question, should a person who helped create a strategy that is failing, if that is what we want to call what is happening to Target, should they help create the strategy that's failing, also be the one to fix it? So we're going to talk about a couple of different things in this video. First is the planning versus performance paradox. So we need to give Target credit where it's due. This, in my opinion, was not a crisis-driven resignation or a board coup. They did not wake up one day and say, this isn't working, we need to have Cornell step down. Cornell announced his departure as part of a planned succession process. This gives the organization stability and time for transition, and that's what good governance looks like. But, this is a big but, Target has been hemorrhaging market share to Walmart, Amazon, and Costco for years. So their strategic missteps in that hemorrhaging market share, in the reality of what they've done when they pulled back on their partnerships and with Black creators and Black women especially, those aren't hiccups. They are actual systemic issues that have been building throughout Cornell's tenure. And Fiddelke, as COO, he was not just watching from the sidelines. He was literally part of the leadership team making those strategic decisions. The other thing that's happening is Cornell is going up to serve on the board, or so it's said. Target's board faced a classic succession dilemma: whether to promote the internal candidate who knows the organization inside and out, or acknowledge that fresh thinking might require fresh leadership. They chose continuity over disruption, however you want to define continuity, and whether that's wise remains to be seen. It's also something that I'm not quite sure that they actually chose because they wanted to have someone who knew the organization inside and out. With Cornell stepping into board leadership, this was all part of the design. So one of the things that several things that nonprofits get wrong about internal succession is addressing the tension between familiarity, that's always such a hard word to say, and fresh perspective. And most boards handle this poorly, to be honest. They either assume that internal candidates cannot provide new vision, which is wrong, or they assume that organizational knowledge automatically translates to successful leadership, which is also wrong. The truth is really much more nuanced. Internal promotion, someone who is known to the organization, can absolutely drive innovation. This happens when boards and leaders honestly assess whether the existing leadership team has the capacity for a strategic pivot. So I'm curious, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Does your deputy director or your COO, are they advocating for different approaches that current leadership is rejecting? Or are they fully bought in to the current strategy that may be failing or not fully serving your mission or the community that you serve? Target's board bet that Fiddelke could lead differently as CEO than he operated as COO. That's possible. Authority does change perspective, but it's also a gamble that many nonprofit boards aren't honest enough to evaluate properly. The other thing here, the kind of unspoken thing, is that Target's board may have also very intentionally pulled Fiddelke into the CEO role because they know how he will operate, because they've pulled the outgoing CEO into that board leadership. So here are the questions your board should be asking. If you are facing succession planning, whether planned or forced, Target's situation can offer a framework for the conversations that you need to have. First, think about strategic assessment as your priority. Before evaluating any candidates, honestly assess your current strategy. Are you achieving your mission effectively? Are you keeping pace with peer organizations? Are you doing what you said you would do? Are you upholding your organization's values? Are donors and other interested parties that want to see you reach and achieve your mission, are they confident in your direction? If that answer is no, then it should change your succession criteria. You also should be asking yourself questions about the internal candidate evaluation. Don't just ask whether internal candidates can do the job, ask whether they are capable of doing the job differently. What evidence do you have that they would change course rather than double down on current approaches? And now, neither one of those things are wrong or right. It's just something that you as a board need to be considering. Vision versus operations. Strong operational leaders do not automatically become strong visionary leaders. There's a reason that there is a CEO title that comes with a whole different makeup of what makes a good CEO, and COO has another set of very specific tasks and roles and things that they should excel at. Fiddelke executed as a COO. The CEO executed with strategic thinking, external relationship building, and organizational transformation. Those are different skill sets entirely. The last thing that your board should be thinking about when it comes to this topic is your own accountability. Target's board, in my mind, has essentially decided that their current strategy would work with better execution potentially. Maybe they're right, but if they are wrong, they're going to have to own that failure. Although we know that the reality is the COO, the incoming CEO, will also own that failure. But your board needs to have an accountability mindset of owning the failure and the successes of what you do around succession planning. This is where corporate and nonprofit divide kind of matters. So Target's shareholders can absorb a few more years of market share decline while Fiddelke proves himself. Your donors, your beneficiaries, your community that you serve, your staff, they don't have time to wait. When your food bank is losing ground to other service providers or losing funding, when your scholarship recipients aren't succeeding at the rates that you've set out, when your arts programming isn't engaging communities effectively or with inclusion, you don't have 2 or 3 years to see if your internal promotion works out. Nonprofit succession planning truly requires more honesty about organizational performance and leadership capacity than most boards are comfortable with. But that discomfort is exactly why you need external perspectives during succession processes. So the 3 critical insights that I am asking you to lean into if you are a nonprofit board of director member are these 3 things. Number 1, planning beats crisis, but planning alone isn't enough. Just having the succession process in place is essential. Go one layer deeper or one level higher and have the courage to also acknowledge when that process needs to challenge existing leadership approaches. That's what separates good governance from board theater. The second thing is that internal knowledge has value, and sometimes fresh perspective has greater value. I know that may be a little itchy and sticky for some of you to think about. Organizational history matters. It matters a lot, but mission impact matters more. If your internal candidates can't articulate how they would lead differently to achieve better outcomes, you're not promoting leadership, you're promoting continuity. The third and the last final thing to think about is that you need to time transition around performance, not convenience. Now, this is, of course, if it can be timed and if it can be planned. That's not always the case. But assuming it can be planned, think about this. Cornell's departure timing allowed for planned transition, but it ignored Target's competitive position. Don't let calendar considerations override strategic ones. Now, had they done this very quickly after all of the DEI pullback and backpedaling, that would have had a different outcome than had they done it before the recent numbers came out about the money that they're losing. Now, Fiddelke might prove that internal candidates can drive transformation. He may also prove that the board knew what they were doing when they moved the outgoing CEO up to a board governance chair. I don't know if he's board chair actually, up to an executive board position. Or Target might spend the next few years learning that promoting their promotion execution with the strategic plan without evidence of capability is an expensive mistake. Your nonprofit doesn't have Target's luxury of learning from expensive mistakes. Plan your succession like your mission impact depends on it, because it does. If you need help navigating leadership succession in your organization, get in touch with us. This is exactly what we do at Leaving Well. You can find us at naomihadaway.com/contact or email support@8thandhome.com. That's support@8, the number 8, THANDHOME.com. We'd love to explore creating transitions at your organization that actually work. Da 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 da.